Ivan and Valerio, are they getting homework?
Who?
Ivan and Valerio?
Oh, yes. Thanks for
Yeah,
asking.
they're
Oh,
here.
that's great. No, thank you.
Okay.
So Ivan and Valerio, if you guys are listening, whatever you guys are doing, because usually whatever I give you guys on Wednesday is feedback to work towards over the weekend. Since I'm not sure what you guys are doing, what you guys are working on, since you guys weren't feeling good, too good. Usually, the general feedback that I give is just you would probably just need to finish whatever it is that you have. So, whatever character designs you got left to do, amongst the designs that you have and the ones that I reviewed and the notes that I gave you last class, try to apply those notes the best you can to your next series of characters. So, for instance, Ivan, I told you, you needed to like work on your character, the shapes and stuff like this. So you'll just need to do that again, probably for other characters. So if I had to say, just try to aim for like two, maybe even like between 2 to 4 characters, try to get them done and colored and finished by next class. And depending on how well you guys feel or how hard it is to try to accomplish that, just gauge it based off of that. So if you only can do 2, so be it. Then aim for 2. If you can do all 4, then do 4. If you can't do 2 or 4, but you feel comfortable doing like 3, then do that. Leave it up to you guys to decide how you guys want to approach this. But yeah, other than that, good luck to you guys. Believe in you. I believe in you. Anyway, thank you. Steven, I know you had some questions you wanted to ask. Now's the time to ask it.
Yeah. Hey. Um,
It's
my
talking about
question was,
UFOs, huh? Just read the chat. Sorry, good.
no, like when it comes to like, I mainly struggle with like the middle stage of character design, like the iteration stage of like iterating on the same design. Um, when it comes to that, is it best to go out and do another set of like, or another stage of research before doing that? Like, would that help? Or just try and push what I have further?
Um, yeah, so that's a good question. And the way you should think about this, I'll answer your question directly now, which is yes, of course, do more research. Now, the way you should think about this, though, is that there is no reason why you can't do anything and everything to try to do good. Okay. So if you feel you need to research because you just need more information, right? Because it's hard to come up with new ideas, then so be it. That's what you got to do. You know what I mean? There's this problem that I think people have where they're afraid of like asking for help or trying to like do everything without looking at any assistance, you know?
Yeah.
Because you see someone like me, for instance, like right now, I'm like painting this with like little to no reference nearby. Actually, no reference at all, right? I'm just painting some sort of demon monster, you know?
Yeah.
And you see that and you're just like, oh my god, like I have to keep looking at reference. I have to like keep looking at stuff. But then AJ just paints whatever. And any other artist, there's a lot of people I'm sure you can think of that do the same thing that just kind of just pull it out of their ass, it seems like. Right.
Yeah.
So I think that adds to this false sense of like you should never really use reference. And sometimes you have artists that really great artists that give really bad advice too. They're like, I never use reference. Like that statement is just wrong. They
Mhm.
absolutely do use reference. Everybody uses reference. I do. And the way that I think about the reference that I'm using currently, what you're watching me do right now, it's internalized reference. It's reference that I have earned, that's in my mind, just chilling, you
Yeah.
know? And the lower, like I said earlier, the lower skill you are at this type of stuff, then the more you have to do it. And don't feel bad for doing it. So if you feel like, okay, during the iteration stage, I need to, gather more reference and study some more because I just don't have enough information, That's very wise, because you're going to do that and you're going to learn more and you're going to have more information for the future. You're just going to add more information, you know? So that's the way you think about it. Like, you know, like cut the bullshit. Like, just do it. Nobody cares. Like, here's a really awesome way of thinking about this too, actually. When you submit your portfolio to a client, they will rarely, if at all, be like, oh, what brush did you use? You know, maybe the art director, because they really love your artwork for whatever reason, right? But like, they're not hiring you because you research really good, or you have a badass process for iteration, you know?
Yeah.
That researching of really good and that badass process for iteration is what results to having a good portfolio. Whatever you did to do that, like whatever that was, whether it was that rapid iteration studies and reference gathering, whatever that strategy you did to do the things you did, is going to result in the portfolio that you have that got you the job in the first place. You know what I mean? If you use no reference in a direct way, right? You don't like go online and like look at something and then just copy paste it into your, like, you just kind of do it from the mind because you studied a lot, like someone like myself, for instance, you know? The company is hiring you because of the result of whatever that is. So they hire me for the result of the kinds of ways I draw monsters. They're hiring me specifically because of the way that I draw monsters and robots. You get it?
Yeah.
However I get there is not why they're hiring me. Yeah. In fact, we were working with some freelancers, and the way that we were putting together like their reference sheets so that they can work from, you know, they also included, like, my buddies included like thumbnails that they liked from other artists. And then when these artists started working, they would do the thumbnails exactly like the ones in the reference. And there's one artist I was just like, this guy is clearly better at photo bashing. Like, what are we doing? Why are we making him like paint and draw? Like, he doesn't know how to do that. He's just not good at that, you know? Because when he submitted his thumbnails to us, they were really bad. They were really trash, you know? And so then like my coworkers were just like, oh man, this sucks. And then I was just like, no, like, watch, I'll show you. And I did like a little tutorial to say, hey, just photo bash, but like think fast. And I did like a really quick photo bashing, just showed them how to think about doing photo bash thumbnails, you know? I was like, because we don't need it like to be 100% clear. We don't need it 100% finished. We just need to be very clear. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I did that little tutorial video for him, sent it over as feedback. He took that very well, and then he came back with some glorious thumbnails, because that was his strength. I don't care that he photo bashes. I know there's some purists out there, right? And they're just like, photo bashing is of the devils, and that's like no real skill. I remember one of my closest friends, he found out that Jamie Jones photo bashes a lot. And he was just like, no, not Jamie Jones. It'll be kind of like if you guys found out that I photo bashed like all my images. I think that would be kind of similar, because a lot of my images look like I just paid from hands, which is true, is what I do, right? But imagine if, like, you know, I take my class and then all I did was just like this kind of really sloppy photo bashing. I mean, most of you guys would adopt it, I'm sure, because you're like, well, whatever, good results, right? But I can imagine some people also being like, oh man, but that purist in me is kind of disappointed that AJ like photo bashes everything, right? And I'm saying to you guys, because I am a purist, I paint everything, right? At least most things, especially for personal work. I paint almost all the things I do for personal work, or hand sculpt it, you know? And I prefer it. I love it because I have more control. That's why I like it. Not because of this idea that it's like harder, right? And it's like it demonstrates like real like skill to be like, oh, he hand painted it, you know what I mean? Like, it's even like when I started doing stuff traditionally too, people are like, what? You could draw traditionally? Like, I don't subscribe to this camp. of thinking. What I subscribe to is make good artwork however you can make good artwork, right? Because nobody cares. Whenever you draw and paint like from the purest of your heart, you're only drawing for other artists, not for consumers, people who actually digest our artwork, like in the video games and the movies. No, none of that. Like I remember when Pixar used to do this thing. I don't know if they still do it. I don't think they stopped. I don't know, actually. I haven't seen a movie in the theater in a while because Onward just came straight to DVD essentially. I didn't watch it in the theaters, but they would do this thing in the beginning of the movie where they'd be like, "It's really hard to make movies." I'm like, "Thank you guys for coming to watch the movies," And they do like these little like 2-minute like documentaries about like how hard it is to like make the movie that you're about to watch, right? Which I appreciate because I'm like in that industry and I'm like, yeah, man, I get it, dude. Like chest the peace sign, to the screen. and then like I just can see everyone else is like on their phone, like they can give two shits. Like, boo hoo, Pixar, let's get on with the show, man.
Yeah.
It's like it's sad, but it's true, and I would like to think that I'm immune to this too, or like people in our industry are immune to this, like we would respect that. Remember with the Rockstar stuff, like people were like, oh man, they treated their employees like trash, when they made Red Dead Redemption. Red Dead Redemption had all this bad press. Or sorry, Rockstar had all this bad press because of how they were treating their employees and making them work crazy hours. And then everyone's, oh, can you believe it? They're making them work like 16-hour days and all this crazy stuff. And then Red Dead Redemption 2 comes out, record sales. No one gives a fuck, dude. Because if you genuinely cared, you would not buy the game in terms of protests to teach Rockstar to treat their employees well, right?
Yeah.
I mean, some of my friends, they justified it. They're like, well, I want to support all their hard work, so that's why I bought it. And I was like, yeah, but listen, that money is not going to them though. Like, of course it sucks to think that if you don't buy the game, the first action that Rockstar is going to do is punish the employees, right, by like firing them. That's just the nature of it. I hate it, and I think it sucks. That's why I'm a big fan of regulative solutions to these types of problems. That's what's happening right now during the coronavirus. You're seeing that right now. People are like firing all their employees because they can't afford it, which just sucks. It just sucks. It's a sucky situation. But it would have been cool if the government had in place employee protection. Like, this is not the employee's fault that the world has to shut down, nor is it the company's fault, but I get the bottom dollar. So that's why you need to build in proper measures to protect both the companies and the employees in the same breath. But that doesn't exist. And so it's like, you see this in our industry, you see those like, and so all I'm getting at is this idea of like, man, like I hand painted all this stuff. You're only like patting yourself on the back when you do that kind of stuff. Okay. And so when I say you can do whatever the fucking hell you want to do to make a compelling image, whether that's more research, whether that's photo bashing, whether that's using 3D, whether that's even doing paint bashing, which just seems really wrong to do, but I know many professionals who do it, and you would never know because they're really good at it, right? That's kind of the point. You don't want to like copy paste someone else's artwork and then call it yours. That's plagiarism. But you could totally like use their paintings as a good overlay for color to get your painting started. I see that all the time, I think it's just important to distinguish between like your art versus like the making of good art, right? So if you like to make art from scratch and that's the process in which you want to make your professional process, the only advice I have for that is then that just means you have to be even doubly better, right? Because you have to recognize that there are motherfuckers out there who are using 3D, who are using photo bashing, and also AI now, right? to make their artwork, you're going to compete against that. And if it takes you, if you take 1 minute longer than them, then they have that advantage over you, right?
Yeah.
So that's why, like, what I'm doing right here, I paint by hand because ironically, you have more control and you can be faster,
Yeah.
And like I said, my advice is that if you do want to pursue this, that requires a lot of fucking foundational practice. You need to know perspective, anatomy, color, lighting, form, the same way you know how to walk, right? Where you don't even think about it. The reason why people use 3D, the reason why people use photo bashing and all these other techniques that are really great, and I'm not shitting on them, is because they don't know how to paint accurately or use proper lighting or know anatomy, right? So they kind of have to cheat it. But they actually, as fast as it is, or at least appears, they're actually losing control. They don't have as much control. So that's why that one artist that when we asked him to just draw like a basic thumbnail, he was like, it was impossible, And that's why I told him, stop, just stick to what the rivers and oceans that you're used to, because he's going to give us good results that way. And he did, right? Just assume that because he made like really amazing matte paintings, that's why we hired him. That's why they brought him on. And I educated my boss and my art director is like, just because they make good matte paintings doesn't mean that they're good artists, like designers,
Yeah.
And they learned the hard way, right? Because the guy, he didn't live up to the standards that they were hoping, and it sucks because it's not his fault. It was bad hiring, Where we hired these other artists they're really great designers, right? Because they would send us the thumbnails, and those thumbnails were very readable and very clear, and that's the point. Like they demonstrate design. When you guys do your thumbnails and you do your iterations and stuff like that, you're demonstrating design to employers that you can do iterations. It's really cool.
Yep.
So yes, of course, study and practice or whatever you want to do during any stage. Now, to give you kind of my strategy, and you can take it however you want to, this information. I like to front load, meaning that I like to study and research a lot at the front, so that way my mind is primered, and that way I try to prevent myself from copy pasting stuff that I see in the future when I start to kind of get into it. I want to be like, so if I'm trying to learn, I don't know, like Egyptian culture, right? Like let's say I'm working on a game that's Egyptian for whatever reason, then I will spend a lot of my time studying Egyptian architecture and design on the front end. Like I'll do lots and lots of studies, tons and tons of studies. And then I'll begin to actually like make designs once I feel comfortable, It's not like that I don't try while I'm studying. I do, but I keep studying for like a good couple of days, and then I will take a stab at it. This is specifically if I'm learning something that I have no idea how to do. And I say that's what I do now. I'm not trying to say that what you should do too. I'm saying just take that information however you want. I think there is a caveat here is that this is me now. So there is a good chance that the reason why I can do it is because I'm like better at learning,
Yeah.
So that's really important to distinguish. But I like to front load it, and then I like to offload it too at the very end. So that when I'm like, so for instance, like looking at this design, this will be a great opportunity. Like if I really wanted to polish this, I could polish it without looking at reference, but if I really wanted to make it like even better than I probably could do on my own, I would try to find reference, the quality control stage. Make sense? But I'm not anticipating to finish this. This is supposed to be like a cool sketch. I'm in the world of sketchy land nowadays. I leave the polishing for professional work, and I'm learning 3D in a real way. I'm getting super fast. It's crazy. I'm getting crazy fast. Eventually, I was just even thinking right now when I was painting this, I was like, I wonder how I could do this in 3D, like make something look and feel close to this. It will never be 100% like this, right? Because it's painted, but close, like the way that these colors are transitioning, you know, and like how the materials feel and how like all this cloth and wrapping. I was just thinking about it right now as I was sculpting, or I'm sorry, painting this. I was like, how would I make this in 3D? And I'm like, oh yeah, I could probably do that. Probably do this. I was just thinking in my mind because that's the world I'm living in now. I'm thinking in 3D a lot more these days, right?
Yeah.
I have some solutions too, which is great. I'm like, oh yeah, I could fucking fake that, fake this. I just got to do some experiments. Right now, I just need to get better at sculpting faster. I'm getting faster though. I don't know if you're following me on Facebook, but I'm like sharing my progress. I got half a torso done in under an hour. And I'll show you if I can get a full character in under an hour. And then the next step after that is to make good looking characters in under an hour. And then eventually make something like this, like a finished looking character with color and detail and materials, you know? And then now that's when that day happens, which probably be by the end of this year, people are going to lose their shit. They're like, how the fuck, dude? And it goes back to practicing fundamentals, my man. I just got a book called Anatomy for Sculptors.
I love
So
that
I'm
book.
gonna be reading through that book. I used to have it a long time ago, but I don't think I've ever read through it. And I think someone stole it from me, so I'll have to get it again. And so the context has changed, so I'm sure now I'll get some more information out of it. I have Anatomy for Artists. That was a good one. Classic. Anyway, any other questions?
Yeah, I was wondering if you can give some advice on to how to put ourselves out there in terms of like getting a job, because I remember you mentioned
Sure.
the other day, like let's say we would apply somewhere and then there are like people like you who are like way more experienced than compared to those guys, we stand no chance, right? But you need to, I feel like somehow you need to start somewhere, and I was also wondering, what would an art director, what do you think they are looking for in somebody they hire? What are
All right.
the
Yeah, I got you.
cool.
So the way that you put yourself out there, okay. Here's a couple of things. First things first, there's only a couple things you can control. The one thing you can control is the quality of your work. I talk about this all the time. So being good, that's really one of the big things you can control. And then the other thing that I talk about is that you should also hold on, I'm gonna make a brush real quick. I need to focus. Let's bring this to 10. Dual brush, bring that to that. Let's bring this to 80. Hold on, almost done. All right, so let me go ahead and make this. Yep, and then let's put this right over there. And then there is a brush here that I like to use. Bring that right over there. Is there any more in here that I use a lot? That one is pretty good. This one's pretty good. This one's pretty good. Okay. All right, cool. So that way I can close most of these. Yeah, that's fine. Okay, cool. So you only have control over the quality of your work. That's one of the things, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then you have control over the way you get their work out there, which is kind of what you're getting at.
Yeah.
So there's always going to be people more experienced than you, right?
Yeah.
Like the chances of you being the very best at this specific industry, it's very unlikely, right?
Yeah.
Because there can only be one, right?
Yeah.
It's like this the millionaire problem and billionaire problem, right? Like people don't like to hear this type of stuff. Like the chances of you being a millionaire is very, very, very low, right?
Yeah.
Statistically speaking. It's not that it's not capable though. So here's like, or it's not within reach. It's just that like there's not that many, right?
Mhm.
And even if it was a fair playing field, there's not enough money to go around potentially for everyone to be a millionaire, right? So there still would be a cap. But here's the thing: you don't have to be, you know. So when you
Yeah.
think about like the Olympics, there's like this fastest runner, Usain Bolt. He's like
Mhm.
the fastest human alive. He just is, right?
Yeah.
Specifically when it comes to sprinting. Yeah. This is not debatable. Like he literally raced people all around the world. We threw everyone through their best at each other and he beat them all. Right.
Mhm.
And so because of that, he's the fastest. Okay. So does that then mean that every other person that is slower than him is slow as fuck?
No, I don't think so.
No, right? That means like the
No.
person who's second place is
Yeah,
also
so fast.
super fast. They're just the second fastest, right?
Yeah.
Now let's keep going down this rabbit hole of like, okay, so let's think about the fifth or 500th person in that at the Olympics that year or whatever, right? The person who's placed 500th, obviously they
Mhm.
don't get a trophy of any kind. I don't know how the Olympics work. I'm just throwing a random number, but let's just say the 500th person, right?
Yeah.
So that means there are 499 people that are just faster than this individual. Yeah.
Mhm.
But that means they are faster than 7 billion people. Okay. Now, when
Yeah.
it comes to like the Olympics, again, I don't know all the details of what happens to those who are not the fastest. I just know they don't do as well. That's fine. But the kind of moral of the story here is that in our industry, you don't have to even be the fastest, right? And you can be the 100,000th fastest person, right? In this metaphor, right?
Yeah.
And get great jobs and opportunities,
Yeah.
right? In fact, you can work alongside some of the greatest people, right?
Mhm.
Even though your placement is maybe far, far below them,
Yeah.
because you are still really, really good in retrospect. Make sense?
Yeah.
So my point to you is like, you only have control of quality. You only have control of how much exposure. And what ends up happening is that the quality part people know they should be practicing, just becoming a great artist.
Mhm.
But then they discount themselves compared to other artists because, well, there's other people that are just so much better. That part I just destroyed. It doesn't matter. You just got to be
Yeah.
amongst the best. But that same thought process prevents people from doing the thing that leads to the second point, which is sharing your work and exposing yourself. Because you don't think you're the best, because you know there's so much people that are so much better than you, which is true, you don't share your work. You don't post on social media. You don't go to communities and try to expose yourself in this way.
Yeah.
You have to do that. Now, I understand that if you're trying to get better, you don't want to share your garbage work, right?
Mhm.
So then you just got to find a place where that's okay. For me right now, it's Facebook. I don't do that on Instagram. Like I'm doing these sculpts, I'm just sharing on Facebook. I'm not sharing on Instagram,
Okay. Yeah.
And the reason why is because I have the habit of sharing my work just in general, right?
Mm.
And that habit I got even before Facebook and all that stuff. I used to do that all the time, share my work and such, right? I used to do that on Facebook actually, and also on Blogspot. I used to share my work on blogs, you know?
Yeah.
And like I used to do on Tumblr too, you know, I used to share my work a lot. And that kind of philosophy of thinking and approach to things really pays well in the long term, because now I'm just in the habit of being a person who shares work often. I'm a person who just keeps themselves accountable by sharing often.
Mm.
So you asked like, how do you get, you know, in front of these? How do you get noticed? The reason nobody notices you is you just don't post, right? And it's funny, like you say, okay, well, once I get good though, AJ, I'll start doing that. I'm saying like, no, don't even wait. Like just find a place where you feel like it's okay to share garbage work and just start building that habit. And eventually your garbage work will stop being garbage, you know? And
Yeah.
and the reason why I say this is because I know people who are actually really good. They actually are great. Like they already were pretty good, you know? Like they're
Yeah.
very good artists. You know what I mean? And I met them at Lightbox, two of these people, and they're just like, how do I get more jobs? Like I worked my portfolio. I feel like it's hard to get opportunities. And I said, well, it's because nobody knows who you are. You don't share your work. Like I'm looking at your art station, and you've only shared work like 2 times in the last year. It's not the company's fault that they don't know you exist, you know?
Yeah.
And sure enough, that person started sharing. And then the same thing with another person. I said the same thing to them. They were really, really good. And that person wrote me the other day. Both of them actually did. And they're like, dude, I got jobs. I was like, oh, look at that. You know? Unfortunately, I know one of these guys, he was international. And because of COVID, it fucked up his chances, which sucks. But the point was that, yeah, the point was that him sharing his work was not the reason why he lost the opportunity. It's because of this unfortunate circumstance, right? Because then, you know, our president went ahead and said, fuck foreigners. And he was like right in that transitional phase. So everything just pretty much got stopped, like just like locked. It was really sad, man. I was sad for that guy, you know? But it had nothing to do with him sharing his work. Him sharing his work got him the opportunity in the first place. And him sharing his work was going to get him out of his other problem too, you know? Because other companies will see his work again and he can probably turn this around. You know what I mean? I think right now he's focused on just trying to get his feet, like land on his feet again, because this whole thing screwed everything up. But my point is that that's the solution to getting more opportunities, is to actually share your work. And then when you compete against like professionals, you just got to make sure you can stand up to toe. Like when someone shares their portfolio against mine, my portfolio or their portfolio has to be the one that's needed from the company, you know? Another thing that I talked about is like going to events, which is going to be really hard for probably another year.
Yeah.
But going to events is like a huge thing too, because you make friends. Go and you meet people at these events and you make lots and lots of friends, you know? Making friends is also another way of getting opportunities. You know what I mean? Hold on just a second. Hold on. All right, I'm back. Anyway, yeah, hopefully that gives you some insight. Yeah, unfortunately there's no trick, my man, you know? Or like there's nothing that I could say that would shock you. But what I will say that it is simple, okay? It's actually not complicated, you know? A good metric that I love to use is like health and diet. Like everybody knows they should be eating vegetables and shit, but they just don't. You know? You know what I mean? Like it's not that, like, how do you stay healthy or how do you stay fit? Like everybody knows how to do that. Like you got to work out, right? You gotta go lift stuff. You gotta move. You gotta walk. Like stop staying in your house. You know, just nobody does it. That's the problem. You know what I mean? Like nobody does these things. Like I'm starting to get a little out of shape because I've just been working a lot. And that's because of that very thing I just said. I'm not moving around as much as I used to. But the thing that I can't control is what I'm putting in my mouth, you know? So I'm preventing myself from eating too many bad things. And that's keeping me relatively fit, you know?
Yeah.
But moral of the story, if I want to get out of this, I have to start taking my exercise regimen seriously again. And I've been thinking about how to do that. But that's a conversation for a different time. It's a whole different thing. Anyway, hope that gives you some clarity.
Yeah, it does. Thanks, man.
Yeah, and like I mentioned earlier when I was talking about like, you know, we're living in a global market. You know, a lot of this stuff used to be much harder. Like you would literally have to live in the city or country to get those jobs, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's to be respected. And there's still some truth to that if you want to work locally at a studio. I'm just saying that a lot of that has changed. You know, it's a lot more open these days than it used to be, which is good news for international individuals.
Yeah,
Because
it is.
most of the markets are overseas from some of you guys, but you guys could, if you're good enough, trust me, you'll get approached.
Cool.
Okay, you just will. And another thing too is like it's generally true for me as well. You know, like what's stopping a company in your country reaching out to me and having me work with them? So if you think about it, I might even be able to compete against you in your own country. I don't even live there, right?
Yeah.
Like especially if they're like okay with working with contractors.
Yeah.
I've worked with many international companies and I get paid just fine working with these studios, right?
Mm.
So, okay, cool.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, I'll take one more question, if there is any. Oh, here's somebody, possibly. No,
If no one's asking, I would ask.
I don't
Okay.
think anyone's asking. Yeah, go for it, man.
Right. So I've been sort of like freelancing for a while. When
Nice.
like okay, so you know that you're ready and everything, then the portfolio comes ahead. How do you know that your portfolio? What would your portfolio be consisted of? Like just quality work,
yeah,
or would
that's
it be?
great. So my advice on this is just assume that you're always ready. Okay.
Okay.
So just assume that your portfolio is ready and then just start sharing it now. Okay. And the logic behind this is that you just don't want to wait around. You don't want like some sort of like abstract construct of when you're ready, because it's hard to tell. Some studios might be happy with what you have right now, even if you don't feel that way. And some studios might have a higher standard and you're real far away from what they want. That's what happens when you go to these events, like I mentioned, and you do portfolio reviews, right?
Yeah.
You're servicing that that industry by like, or you're serving it yourself when you go to these industry events by sharing work with them, and then they can tell you to your face why they don't like it or why they love it. I remember I had a student once, he went and he said, like one person was saying that he needed more environments in his portfolio, and then another person said that he had like an amazing portfolio, and they just couldn't hire him because they already are full on concept artists, right? So he's confused. He's like, well, one studio said that they were already happy with my work, but another one's like, I don't have enough of this other thing. He's like, what do I do? And I was like, you're comparing apples and oranges. It's like if you go, it's like if you go to a pizza convention or fruit convention and you're like selling Like you go to you're selling a bunch of apples, and then you go to an orange seller, and an orange seller's like, you don't have enough oranges. We're looking for oranges, you know. And then you're like, oh man. And then you go to an apple seller, and you're like, oh man, like we love your apples, but we're full on apples, you know. And I was like, if you think of it in that context, you realize why the people said the things that they said. And with that information, you should think about what you should do. So if you wanted to work for that studio that said that you needed more oranges, or in this case, environments, right?
Yeah.
Then sure, you get to have more environments. And if the other person said you're fine with the apples you have, then maybe you just need to find more companies that are looking to buy apples. Or in this case, like let's say just mostly characters, right?
Yeah.
Because you don't want to like think that, oh, now you have to have environments because this one studio said that you had to, right? No, they're looking for something very specific, and you didn't have it, so that's why they gave you the critique, you know. So to say to you like, oh yeah, by the way, you have to have this perfect thing, like if you have this and this and this, then you're good, right? That's really, as an instructor, that's misguided, right? I can't tell you that because some studios just want different things. But what I will say that you should just have is you should have a lot of polished work, like finished images. You should have explorations of that polished work. You should have focus, like you should be very clear what you want to do. So for instance, if you want to sell apples, right? And it should all just be high quality in general, right? And you should have a good amount of it. Like if you only have one piece in your portfolio, that's not enough. You definitely should have more, right? But you should also not fill your portfolio full of just junk, like still life studies. Like if you just have one image that is genuinely a portfolio piece, then the next steps is just to do more. You just need to add more, right? And if you only have like 6 and that's all you get by the time you go to an event, yeah, you might get people telling you need more. And you already know that, you're already working on that, but you can ask them very nicely to just tell you why that your work's not good enough, you know? The 6 that you have, you know? Because you're already going to make on more anyway. It doesn't matter, right? So that feedback specifically would not be useful to you because you're already aware that you should probably have more work than like 2 pieces, you know? But what you do want is have them tell you why your apples are no good, right? Because it's one thing if they say we are full of apples. It's another thing to say like we don't like your apples. And all right, why? And having a portfolio ready to go so you can get real critiques from real individuals, that's the value of just having it and being prepared. I remember when I used to go to events, there would be 2 lines. There would be the student line and then there would be the professional line. And I used to go in the student line because I was a student. But then I stopped. I saw because like the lines for the student lines, which is so long. So I stopped and then I started to go into the professional line. And lo and behold, people started treating me like I was a professional. They started giving me professional critiques and professional insight. And I was like, they're telling me exactly why my work was gross in a professional way, right? Because they just assumed that I was, right? Because my work wasn't so bad that I didn't think I could get reviewed by these people. But it wasn't so good that I was getting jobs, you know? And what you do then with the portfolio that you've built from that perspective of just like, I just have one, I'm just going to start showing it. When you start to replace, or when you start to get feedback, you start to replace the artwork that you should be replacing based off of the feedback that you believe is good feedback. Like people telling you, you should work on materials. You know what? They're right. So as you make new characters, you just put new characters in, take the worst ones out, you know? And then just keep doing that until one day your portfolio just will happen to hit the right person at the right time with the right quality, and then bam, you got a job. You know, it's a numbers game, right? You just got to keep going up to bat. You know, you shouldn't be waiting until like you have the best looking bat to even try to hit the ball, right?
Right. Okay, so I'm just like thinking about it, and if let's say I'm focusing on card art, like game card art, and then I have some illustrations that's just focusing on landscape, some illustrations focusing on character or monsters, whatnot. So is that a direction to head, or should I just focus directly on characters, monsters, or landscapes as one?
Well, no, you just you just told me, right? Like if you want to make card art, you should probably make card art, like portfolio pieces. And I do give the advice that you should be also pretty focused genre-wise. So you should be heavily character card art, right? Character illustration, you know?
Okay.
Nothing wrong with having some landscapes here and there. And I'm not saying that you should never practice or get better at another kind of genre of art. I'm just saying it's so much easier to get better at one and then come back to the other one later. Right? Like I think a lot of times people try to do it. Yeah, people try to do all of it all at once. And remember I was talking with Steven, like this idea of like trying to do too many things is a bad strat. Take one thing at a time. Like in his in using him as an example, a better strategy would have been like take one class at a time. You know? Like there's plenty of time to learn from all these people. You know, you don't have to cram it all in 1 month. Does that make sense? And the same thing goes with like learning different disciplines. Like you should totally learn 3D. You should totally learn like you can probably still do it now in the scope that you're doing it to be better character illustrator, right? But you get what I'm saying. Like if you wanted to be better illustrator, you should focus on illustration. But there's no reason why you can't practice like I don't know concept art here and there and all that stuff. But like your main focus is this one thing, and then you're supplementing the other things whenever you have time.
Okay.
Like when I learned programming, that's all I thought about for like 2 years. It was just programming. Right now I'm trying to learn 3D and game dev. That's like all I'm focused on. That's why I haven't been posting artwork. You know, because I just been in it, dude. I'm like so focused. All I do is watch videos on this stuff, read articles about this stuff, you know? I'm like in all the way. But I have the advantage that I went all in on another thing, which was character concept art, right? Which is my primary skill at the moment. But eventually I'm going to be like a Renaissance artist. Oh, you bet your ass, dude. I'm going to be good at everything, right? I'm going to be like a Michelangelo or Leonardo. Like it's going to be like a genuine mastery of like all these different disciplines. But I'm telling you, I'm prepared to wait like 2-3 years for this to happen. I'm not like thinking that this can happen tomorrow. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm prepared that I'm going to be close to 40 years old when this starts to happen. And then I start to showcase it in a real way, and people are going to be like, what? Who is this person? How is that possible? You know? Most of you guys, like you said, are along in the journey that I've been on, so you guys have seen it happen, right? But there's going to be someone that's never heard of me and never seen my work ever before, right? And when they see me and they see how I do it and how quickly, it's going to look like magic. But as like many of you guys have known from taking my class, it's not magic at all. It's just genuine consistency.
Yeah.
And there's no reason why you guys can't do it either. There's no reason why you guys can't do it better than me either, you know? So I'm just ahead. I just got a head start on you guys. That's all. Right? But it slows down the slope. Trust me. It's not forever that you're never going to catch up. You're going to eventually catch up. I have hundreds of students who've already done this, who've caught up to me, if not passed me already, you know? That I look at them now, I'm like, damn, dude, they're super tight, you know? Right. Like I look at my students like, fuck, dude, they're so good. When I remember when they were just little like Padawans who were having a hard time controlling their values, now they're masters, you know? So I believe the same thing will be true for you guys too. So anyway, that's it, guys. I got to roll out. I got to get to work. But thanks, guys, for all the hard work, all the straight focus, and being amazing. You guys are great. Appreciate y'all. With that being said, you guys have a great weekend. Push yourself to the best. Work hard. Work smart, not hard, actually. That's probably a better way of thinking about it. And I'll see you guys next week. And make sure to push yourselves. Try to go for the gold. Aim high, guys, with these pieces of work that you guys are doing for the final classes that we got. Cheers, y'all. Talk to you Wednesday.
See you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
See you guys.
Thank you for watching this video. I appreciate it. Please subscribe to watch more in the future. If you like the video, I would appreciate a thumbs up. If you like this content, you can go to my website, robotpencil.net, where you can find mentorships, tutorials, and a Patreon to get more exclusive content. Thanks again, and I'll see you guys in my next videos.